Good afternoon. We're going to be making some potato scallop, and I am going, or scalloped potatoes, whatever you prefer to call it, it's the same thing. I am getting our second camera set up here, so we'll just get started in a minute or two. So I didn't give specific amounts in my event because it's going to depend on your dish, how much you're going to need. So we'll turn off the sound and just taking a second here to get our second camera set up. Always running behind, everybody. I'm always running up behind. And now I just dropped my phone. So yes, how much you're going to need is going to depend on the size of your dish. So we're going to play it by ear. All right. We'll get the second camera set up. Okay, so we're going to get started. Let's... Uh-oh. I need to mute this. There, I think we're okay. All right, so I got some potatoes. I'm going to grab a cutting board and a vegetable peeler. No, I'm not going to use a vegetable peeler. I'm going to use my favorite paring knife. It's one of these super old ones that you can't buy anymore. It's my favorite for peeling potatoes. So you're going to have to ignore the awkwardness with which I peel potatoes because I'm a lefty, so leave me alone. Potato scallop, if you're going to be, or scalloped potatoes, whatever you want to call it, is one of those dishes that takes a while to bake. So that's why I'm making it a little bit early, because at 4 o'clock in my virtual fitness class studio, I am teaching yoga. So if I put this in the oven just before I start teaching, by the time the class is over, it'll be pretty close to done. Look at this guy. He's had a rough go. But now he's okay. So we'll just keep peeling. And I just grabbed 5 big-ish russet potatoes. I'm not what you would call a potato snob because I will use most any kind of potato, but this is just what we happen to have. So we're just going to peel these guys up. If you like the peelings and you want to leave them on, go right ahead. What do I care? So if you were watching this and you're going to put yours in the oven right away, I would preheat my oven for 350 to 375. If I'm trying to squeak this out a little bit faster, I will pump it up to 375, but usually I bake it at 350. That's what I'm going to bake it at today, and I'll turn my oven on here in a minute. So I do this a little bit differently than probably most people because I don't measure my potatoes as far as cups. I weigh my potatoes. I track my food. And so I just weigh my food. And obviously, not all potatoes are created equally. We got this big guy and this little guy. So to say you only need X amount of potatoes is kind of hard. But basically, you're going to use as many potatoes as you need to fill your dish. So for me, I know that this dish here, I'm going to want around 750 to 800 grams of potato. So I grab my little food scale. If you don't have a food scale, you're not going to do this part. You're just going to cut up your potatoes until it's full. And I'm just going to chuck these on here. So that's 803. So I'm going to go with these 4. And if I decide that it's too empty, then I'll get into this big honker. But for now, we're going to say that's good enough. So my potatoes are all peeled. I'm going to give them a quick rinse. And I'm going to ditch my potato peelings in my garbage pail, my compost pail. All right. So next, you're going to slice your potatoes. I'm going to dump that extra water out. So you can just slice them by hand, in which case we'll reverse things here so you can see a little better. If you're going to slice it by hand, I can't do it this way. I'm a lefty. So I'll just turn it. You're going to cut thinnish slices. It doesn't have to be super tiny, but thinnish. However, I have one of those deadly mechanisms, the mandolin. So I very strategically, okay, this is very important. So you can see I had the cheese grater one on the top. I always leave the cheese grater on it when it is in storage, because down here you can see I have the other guys. We have this dude. What does anybody use this for? I don't even know what that's for. And then this one has the slicer. And I always keep that in the center one, because then the bottom is this. Because if I kept that on the bottom, then people could slice their hand. Not that people have sliced their hand on it before, but I always keep it there. Anyway, you didn't need to know that. So I am going to use that because it goes really quickly. Now, safety conscious people are going to recognize that I'm not using the guard. That's right. Should you use the guard? Absolutely. Is that why I continue to cut myself? Because I don't use it? Probably. And you can see I'm just slicing it right into my dish. I'll be careful when I get down to the bottom here. I find the guard makes it too hard to use. So actually, most every time I cut myself, it's not on this. It's always on this knife, which I love. I don't know why that still gets some brown bits, so we'll just cut that off. So you guys are going to be so familiar with the dietary needs of the Thebans family, but my husband has ulcerative colitis. He can't eat onions. So a lot of people would add onions in their potato scallop, but I don't because he can't eat them. My mother just happily told me earlier today that she likes to use corn. We also cannot have corn. So if you want to add some of those things in, you are absolutely able to do that. So as I go, I just kind of try to flatten things out. Yeah, this mandolin is one that I got from Avon many years ago. I think that it's a little bit less dangerous because you know how a lot of them are on an angle, so it's easier to get going. This one is straight, but it does have these little grooves, so I can kind of stick it on the edge here so it doesn't move around as much. And so as I'm slicing, I just stop every once in a while just to flatten these guys out a little bit, and then I turn it because I find it doesn't always keep the potato perfectly even. And then we'll just slow down. When I get to the bottom, is everyone freaking out watching me use this mandolin up close? So you could absolutely stop in between layers and add some salt, add some seasoning. You could add minced garlic in there if you want. I am not going to because I'm going to add all of my seasoning right in the sauce. Uh-oh, we're flying over the edge now, folks. And aside from the fact that it takes a while to cook, this is something that comes together pretty quickly. You can see here that, especially with the mandolin, so people, There's a lot of things I don't know, but what I do know is this casserole dish takes about 800 grams of potato. That is like perfect. So I'm just going to rinse my fingers off really quickly here. Yeah, it is good with ham. I'm going to put some bacon on top of mine today. I do always find it sad if you don't have anything to put on top. That's a sad story. So I'm going to turn my oven on to 350 to let that preheat. We didn't need this big honking potato, so we'll put it over here. Now, the sauce that you're going to put over top of it, you can do this. I mean, there are 1,000,001 ways that you can make this recipe. This is just my recipe. This is not by any means the only way or even the best way. Some people will just use cream of mushroom soup and put that over top. That's good. Some people just shake up their flour and water and everything, or milk, not water, in a jar and dump it on. I am going to heat mine up. So I'm going to take a little saucepan. We're going to get some butter. We're going to make a roux. Got a little trick for you. Maybe everybody in the universe already knows this. I don't know. But if you didn't, you'll learn something new. When you're making a cream sauce, so like a sauce put on potato scallop, a cheese sauce, something like that, and you want to make sure that you're getting the amounts correct. General rule, 1 tablespoon of butter, 1 tablespoon of flour will thicken a cup of milk. So it's 1, 1, and 1. So super easy to remember. So we'll get out my big scary knife. And for this size dish, what size is this? Does it say? It does not. Whatever size dish this is, I'm going to use 1.5 cups. So I'm going to need about 1.5 tablespoons of butter, about 1.5 tablespoons of flour, and about 1.5 cups of milk. We're going to get this started on the stove. So I'm pretty good at eyeballing. Can you see? I don't think it really matters if you can see. I'm pretty good at eyeballing butter amounts. So that's about 1.5 tablespoons. I might add just a teeny bit more because that one side was a little bit. Don't everybody freak out. I'm not going to cut myself. One side was a little bit skinnier than the other. But remember, your butter package, if you're using butter, it has measurements along the side. And 1/4 cup of butter. I swear, this is the one thing I want you to know. Who knows how many tablespoons is in 1/4 cup of butter? How many tablespoons? 1/4 cup of butter. Anybody? Anyone? Anyone? I'm going to pop this over on the stove top to get the flour melting. There's 4 tablespoons in 1/4 cup. Just saying. So I'm using about 1.5 tablespoons of butter. Oh, see, it makes it so much easier to remember, Monica. There's been so many times that I made macaroni and cheese, and you know, that one can be a little bit finicky when you start adding in all of the cheese. So 1, 1, and 1 makes it a whole lot easier. I'm going to move y'all over to the stove top. I'm going to balance you on my flour bowl, so I have to get my flour out first. That actually works pretty good. Okay, so I got my favorite little whiskey whisk, and we're gonna let that butter melt. Here I am again with my super precise measurements of about 1.5 tablespoons. While that's getting started, I'm just gonna grab the milk out of the fridge, and I will get a measuring cup for that. So we're starting to melt the butter. I'm going to wait until it's mostly melted. In the meantime, I'm going to measure out about 1.5 cups of milk so that it is ready. Again, I only know that's the measurement I want because this is the dish I always use for potato scallop. Our butter is basically melted, so I'm going to dump that in, mix it all up. My heat is pretty high, so I'm going to turn that back after I get this flour off the edge a little bit. Would this be better if my milk was at room temperature? Probably. I don't know. This works fine though. So I let that cook out for a minute, not a literal minute, a pretend minute. Now we're going to add the milk in and keep whisking. I've turned the heat back to about 6. Nope, that one. I will turn it back up after we get going here, but I wanted to stop and give myself a little bit of wiggle room, so that as I'm adding in extra stuff, it doesn't get burnt. So I am going to add in a little bit of salt. I'm going to add in a little bit, just a teeny bit of garlic powder. It's not really supposed to have garlic either, but a little bit seems to be okay, whereas a little bit of onion powder is definitely not okay for him. So and then I'm going to turn the heat back up in between 7 and 8. I mean, it depends on your, oh, good grief, on your dials. So I was trying to charge my laptop while we did this because it's been uploading videos to Zumba all day. And the only way I could have the computer here and have it plugged in is to have the cord going straight across the room. And Rose just walked by with her tail erect, as always, got a hold of the thing and ripped it out and scared herself. My mother says another good sauce is a can of cheese soup thinned with a little bit of milk. So another trick, while this is doing its thing, another trick. If you don't want to do it on the stovetop, you can use a good microwave-safe measuring cup and do it right in the microwave. I would not use this one. I would use my 4-cup one, and I would put the butter in with one of my silicone covers and let the butter melt. You take it out, put the flour in, mix it all up, add your milk, put it back in the microwave for a minute, and keep stopping after a minute and stirring. And after, it depends on the amount, but usually around 3 to 4 minutes, it'll thicken right up just like it would on the stovetop. So if you don't have a stovetop, or you don't have a pot, or you just want to use a microwave, that's another good trick. So had I not, oven's ready. Had I not turned the heat back, that would probably be done, but that's okay because I like to top my potato scallop with cheese and with bacon. And you can do this one of 2 ways. I told you there's a million ways to do this. First of all, I'm going to take this guy out and put my shredding one back on. Nope, just put it in the wrong spot. The shredding one back on. Fewer dishes. Now I got to kind of double duty. So I got to keep coming back and mixing this up. You don't want this to burn on the pot. Cheese. Where's the bacon? I know there is some because I just bought it yesterday. This right here is the most stressful part of the whole situation. All right, you know me and my pre-cooked bacon. That's what we're going to be using. So you can feel it when it starts to thicken. This is already beginning to thicken. It's still a little bit loose. I would have no issues with putting that on. It is going to be in the oven for over an hour, so it will continue to thicken. But I'm going to leave that on for just a couple more seconds. And the last thing I like to add is I like to add in some parsley. How much? I don't measure. So I'll just add a pinch in. All right, this is getting nice and thick now. So I'm going to turn that heat off. I'm going to take it off the stove. And then I'm going to bring you all back to the island. So whoop, we'll come back over here. I'm getting so tricky, you guys. So tricky. All right. So part one is going to be taking our casserole dish, our thickened milk, and we're just going to pour it on. Do it a little bit slow. Remember, it's got to get down through all those layers. And then if you did a good job, the bottom won't be burnt. The bottom of the pot, that is. This one's not too bad. It's not burnt. It's got a little bit, we'll just give that a little rinse, and it'll be good to go. All right, so now, next choose your own adventure. You could cover this with tinfoil if you wanted and just put it in like this, and then at like the 45-minute mark or so, you could throw some cheese and stuff on. I like to add my cheese right from the get-go, so that I don't have to remember to do anything. So I have some cheese here. I can't even remember what kind it was, so I'm not going to tell you. Some sort of cheddar. Rose! Oh my gosh, she's over there screaming. I'm just going to put a little bit of this on, but it's really crumbly, so I might just crumble it. You know what? I'll do it on the counter. You can't see it, but it's just falling apart. So I'm just going to add a little of that. And much like with chocolate chips, I feel like you add as much cheese as you want. That's how I feel. So we'll open up this new package of cheese. If I can. There we go. Just to give you something to look at. Where do I put this? There we go. I'll just grate some cheese. This is not my favorite grater, guys. My Tupperware grater is my favorite grater, but for the sake of not dirtying something else, I'll use this one. And then we'll just put this on top. So we've got a good layer of cheese on there, but I do like my cheese. I'm going to add a little bit more. I'm going to add a little bit more. I got to keep an eye on the time. As long as I have enough time to change and go set up my mat and reset up my cameras for yoga, we're good. All right. This will be good. I like to put some right along the edges because I really like those crunchy bits, the bits that are hard as heck to get off when you're washing the dish, but when you're eating it, it's extra tasty. I have to tell you, I don't know if I've ever had potato scallop with any other type of meat besides a pork product. So I'm going to be putting some bacon. Like Joan said, ham is delicious too. You can do it without anything on there. Now that I've told you that it's always this knife that I cut myself with, you're going to be terrified every time I pull it out. So I'm just going to use 3 pieces of pre-cooked bacon. Just going to cut them up. I keep turning it just so you have something to look at. Don't judge my knife skills because I don't have any. All right, and then I'm just going to sprinkle it on top. And because you can't see, hold on, everybody. I'm going to be moving you. So I'm not very good at this angling, this camera. Anyway, that's what she looks like. Oh, that's very good. Just let me hold that for a second. I've lost it. There we go. I took a screenshot. So maybe I can use that for something. All right, so this guy is all ready to go into the oven. So he's going to go into the oven. I'm going to set a timer. I'm going to set a timer. I'm not going to set a timer. I'll tell you why. Because I'm not going to be able to do anything about it until 5 o'clock anyway. Because I'm going to leave this. Monica? Yes, you can buy pre-cooked bacon. I usually get the PC, not sponsored, but should be, free from bacon. Normally in a normal world, I would get the low sodium variety, but right now I just get whatever they have for me. But a lot of companies have their own version. It's just like the pre-cooked, the real bacon bits, except it's full bacon, and it makes it so much easier because usually I only ever want a slice or two, like to put on the pizza or something, and buying a whole package and having to cook all of it or freeze. No, thank you. So I'm going to throw this guy in the oven. So normally I would set a timer for about an hour, but because an hour from now I'm going to still be teaching yoga, I'm not going to. I'm just going to come up at 5 o'clock and check on it. But for the normal person, you would put it in for about an hour. After an hour, I would take it out and I would do the very technical knife test. So I'd take it out and I would just drop it in and see how much resistance those potatoes give you. If they are really quite tough, you're going to put it back in and put it in for like another 15 minutes and check it again. If you've put that layer of cheese on the top and you haven't covered it with anything, remember the cheese is going to get quite crunchy, which is the way I like it. So there'll be a little bit of resistance getting through that top layer, but the rest of it should go down pretty easily when it's done. When you take it out, let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes, let it cool a little bit and let everything solidify a little bit. A little bit seems to be the phrase of the day, and then you're good to go. So that is it. I have written a blog post with this recipe, so I will share that as well as the photo of the finished product just before I eat it. Well, we eat it. I'm not going to eat the whole thing myself. Shortly after 5. So that is it for today's episode of the Fake Cooking Show on how to make potato scallop or scalloped potatoes. Remember, there's a million different ways. This is by no means the only or the best way. I think the biggest difference in the end is what kind of sauce you want to use, as well as when or if you put toppings on the top. So if my mother's watching, she'll probably tell you that she, first of all, covers it with tin foil, and I think she waits until the last little while before she puts her cheese on. I could be wrong. Or she cooks it with the tinfoil most of the way and then takes the tinfoil off for the last little bit. One or the other. I just let it go because I can't be bothered. So anyway, that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this very exciting episode. But remember, when thickening milk for a cream sauce, it's a 1-to-1-to-1 ratio. 1 tablespoon of butter, 1 tablespoon of flour thickens 1 cup of milk. So you can just, that's the easiest ratio in the world to convert, because if you want to thicken 3 cups of milk, it's 3, 3, and 3. So that is a big tip for the day, I guess. Thanks. I hope it will be delicious. I will share a picture when it's done, though. So I need to go get myself changed and get ready for yoga. And if you do make the potato scallop after I post my picture, I would like to see yours. That is it for today. Tomorrow morning is going to be our low impact class. Wednesday is the day I'm taking off this week. And then we have some crafting to do Thursday, finishing on Saturday, and yoga on Friday. So I will see you later on this week. Bye, everybody.